Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
Now we're official. All right. Good to see those of you physically here and all of you online. Good to have you here. I do hope this finds you well and taking good care of yourselves. We are in this text, if you're new, called Approaching the Buddhist Path. This is the beginning text in a series of, actually, I think there's going to be 9 volumes of really comprehending and putting together the full stages of the path to enlightenment. This was put together by His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, Thubten Chödron, and many others. And the idea was to try to bring these teachings to a Western mind and to make them much more approachable, as it's very different than living in Tibet. So we've been going through the text. We're still in the very beginning phases, and His Holiness Thubten and Thubten Chödron have been going right to the main basic principle of Buddhism. So they started right off with, what's mind and what's body and how they're related, the very nature of suffering itself, the 4 Noble Truths in a very concise, pithy explanation, and then how the very misperception of ourselves and how we observe our experience give rise to what we call samsara, this conditioned existence that leaves us in a limited state, ruled by karma. And we've unpacked that for a little bit. And we're about to enter the next stage here. And a lot of what we've been talking about is, frankly, pretty high above my pay grade. And I've been doing my best to, try to bring it into a real practical way for all of us. I hope those of you who've been attending have been finding that meaningful. And having said that, let's pop the text open here. So we're starting at this point here, which is the possibility of ending dukkha. Now, dukkha is the conditioned existence. So in the 4 Noble Truths, we have truth of suffering, truth of cause of suffering. We have the cessation of suffering, truth of the path. The truth of suffering, that's where we're at here, is dukkha, conditioned existence, right? So I think all of us can relate to the fact that that happiness, this happiness we seek, we may find moments of pleasure and joy, and then it doesn't last. And we may want this to happen, and this happens instead. And we may have an opportunity to be surrounded with wonderful conditions, good environment, and still find ourselves suffering. Those of us here in this room, I could pretty safely say, we probably have some pretty good conditions. How can we be unhappy with all these conditions? And yet the mind will sit there and think, yeah, but if I had this, or if that situation, or if that. And so there's a chronic misperception that goes on with all of us that just looks for our happiness and well-being as the causes being out there, the conditions, the environment, the people I'm with, the right job, etc. And, obviously none of that works out very well. We can even have, I just get amazed. I mean, you can actually have different levels of firmness for your bed on this side, and your partner gets that side. What's the thread count? And, how do I want to dial in the right room settings for my temperature? And yet people can still be pretty unhappy, right? Matter of fact, I might have been happier before we got that stuff, because, once you get it, then it's kind of like, whoa, how do I live without it? People get that right pillow. And you notice these days, people travel with their pillows, because they're so supportive in certain ways. And And so, we can kind of see that there's this opportunity to start to recognize that maybe we're not apprehending accurately true sources of well-being, and we're maybe exaggerating the qualities and attributes of our environment and people and situations. So this is dukkha. This is, the very nature of dukkha right at the start is there's birth, aging, sickness, and death. Not going to get around that. Birth, aging, sickness, and death is going to happen. We're going to have situations in our life that are painful, mentally, emotionally, physically. We're going to lose friends. Sounding pretty miserable already, isn't it? And within all of this conditioned environment, we're kind of trapped. So I like to think of it as a prison, because I'm perky. And the idea of Buddhism then is that there's a possibility of parole and ultimately, release. And so that's what we're at here is there a possibility to be totally free of all this, to be totally free of all this, to have liberation, to be awakened and not under any karma, free of all the conditions that give rise to psychic existence, to samsara. And so that's the topic here, is can you end all this? Can you wake up like the Buddha did? He woke up and no birth, no death, no coming, no going, just full omniscience. So that's where we're at here. So the possibility of ending dukkha, of freedom. If the possibility to end suffering exists, then pursuing that aim is worthwhile. But if dukkha is a given, that this is just the way things are, trying to eliminate it is a waste of effort. From a Buddhist viewpoint, two factors make liberation possible: the clear light nature of the mind and the adventitious nature of defilements. So adventitious, that means it's not inherent, right? It's something that has been added on. It's not the nature of our experience. These afflictions are not, inherent within us. They're adventitious. They're added on, which is going to be a key point here. Is a lot of times in psychology, modern psychology, a lot of what we call the human condition, they say that's just basis. That's the way we are, right? Anger is going to be natural. Resentment is going to happen. These things are going to happen. It's just the way it is. And that's our nature. And Buddhism would say something a little bit different. And I'll phrase it the way Tenzin Priyadarshi, precious teacher, said. When you say you're only human, that's nothing but a self-imposed limitation. In other words, that's how you're experiencing things now, but don't be limited by that. There's more to you. And I'm going to pause there for a moment too, because the statement trying to eliminate dukkha would be a waste of time if it cannot be eliminated. I'm going to challenge that a little bit. And one of the things I love about Buddhism is we get to challenge things. Nothing in Buddhism is, as a matter of fact, Buddha said, don't, you have to test this out. You see if it's true or not. It either is or it isn't, check it out. So ultimately, that statement of saying, if you cannot eliminate it, it would be a waste of time. That makes sense, right? But what if the very things that you would do to eliminate dukkha would also improve your life, even if you couldn't get rid of it? Would that be a waste of time? I think not. I think that a lot of what's happened in modern Western psychology is they've imported a lot of Buddhist understanding of minds, because Buddha's been working on this for a couple of years. Now we have cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Okay, well, very rudimentary Buddhism. And these things that have been imported, and what they do is they help people in a human form have a better life, have less suffering. Okay, maybe I can't eliminate it, but can I lessen it? Can I be a little happier? Can I have a little fuller life? I don't think that's unimportant. So I do get the point of trying to eliminate something that's you can't eliminate, would be a waste of time, except caveat, asterisk, footnote, improving the quality of the life that you have, even if dukkha couldn't be removed, using these practices could be very beneficial and not a waste of anybody's time. And I think that's important because the path to eliminate suffering is a gradual one. So I'm going to tell everybody right now, I'm going to tell myself, I'm not awakened and I'm not enlightened and, I'm not there. I will say, though, that over these couple of decades, I suffer a lot less. I'm a lot more resilient. My ability to adapt and see things, I think, a little more accurately is much improved. And so the quality of my life has improved in human form very much. And so I like to encourage this. Some of you know I record a morning practice every day. And what caught my attention in recording today was, you're seeking liberation, do the same. And liberation, I think, is a process. Can we be a little more liberated from our habits than we used to be? Yeah. Can I be a little more liberated, from some of my mental habits? Yeah. Can I be liberated from some of my sort of defects of character? Yeah. And so right now in the lives that we're living, the process to eliminate dukkha in that process will also improve the quality of your human life. Same types of things. So in that way, I don't think that's a waste of time. And remember, all of you online, I only see a few at the top, I know there's more, is, you can chime in anytime, unmute yourself and ask a question or make, if you like. Let's go just a little further here. So they're saying that there's two factors that make liberation possible. The clear light nature of the mind. Okay, so that's clear light. And then these afflictions, right? These defilements or afflictions. And the point is that they're not a natural part of the mind. Therefore, probably be removed. Trying to make that simple, but we're going to use a lot of technical language here. This is them talking to Westerners. I was reading this going, oh, come on. The clear light nature of the mind refers to the basic capacity of the mind to cognize, to know objects, to cognize. Its clear and cognizant nature. The mind's failure to know objects must then be due to obstructing factors. So the mind can know. It can be all-knowing. It can know accurately. And then saying, but the mind's failure to know objects accurately, well, that's an obscuration. I don't see it. So how do we see things, not accurately? And do all of you see John? Everybody here see John? You guys up there see John? But every one of you seen a different John. We forget that, don't we? Every one of you has seen a different John based on how well you know me or don't know me, and what you know about me or your conditioning and whatever experience you bring, you're seeing and experiencing a different John through your own conditioning and everything. And the world that we experience is a very subjective experience. I see it through my lens. And you see it through yours. And the person right next to you seeing and experiencing the exact same phenomenon is going to have a slightly different experience, or maybe a very different experience. To this day, I can't understand how some people don't like Brussels sprouts. It doesn't make sense to me at all. How can that be? They're clearly delicious from their own side. And so Buddhism, of course, would say that's not the way it works. So we apprehend and experience objects inaccurately. That's the obscurations and the defilements, the afflictions there. But that's not inherent, is the point here.
John, before you move on, can I just ask a quick question? I'm sorry. I meant
Absolutely. Whatever we can do to slow this down, I am with you. Okay, Mark.
Just to go back to the two factors for a minute.
Yep.
For a second. My question is that the first factor is the clear light nature of the mind. And I think I understand what you explained about that. But then the adventitious nature of the defilements.
Right.
And I don't quite get that.
Yeah, he's going to unpack it a bit, but what I was trying to say is that those defilements are not inherent within the mind. That's what I was trying to explain. So adventitious means it's not inherent, right? It's added on. It's like, what do you call it when a species gets, mixed in? It's not a natural species. It's when invasive species. Invasive. Thank you for the word. So adventitious is like that. It's invasive. It's not, it can thrive there, but it's not its nature. It's not natural.
I was thinking it meant to our advantage.
No, yeah, you're right. It's the, adventitious, not advantageous.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's sneaky. Yeah, no, the vocabulary here is very precise. I was reading this before I sat down and I go, let's go slow. Let's go very slow. All right. Well, and just for the record, the people who wrote this, like Thubten Chödron, one of the great nuns, and she's a nun over 40 years, great teacher, studied the Dalai Lama, and then all these high Larampa Geshes, the highest level, and they all got together to say, how do we explain this to Westerners? So, they're already at this place, and we're working on it. So they can be very precise, but they also want to kind of bring it in a way that we get, and we get, sort of the scientific understanding of things and so forth. And normally, just for the record, there's no way this stuff would be at the beginning of a Buddhist teaching. I have to be careful how I teach it. We actually have a vow not to teach emptiness to those who are unripe. And so actually, I'm going to give my disclaimer now so I don't get karmically in trouble for the rest of my lifetimes. When you present the nature of emptiness, the very nature of this, which is where we're getting to here, there's a potential for people to think that nothing exists, right? Emptiness means like nothing exists. And so there's a lot of damage, like nothing really matters. And that is not just misguided, it's going to create an incredible amount of harm in one's life. Think of the behaviors that someone might engage with thinking nothing matters. And then the nihilistic view, So when we speak of the empty nature of things, we're always talking about it's not appearing in the way that we see it. And it's empty of these things that we're imputing upon it. The qualities, like exactly, the qualities you might impute upon me, how you see me, or the Brussels sprouts, or whatever, that they don't exist exactly the way I see it. And they're empty of these sort of qualities that we're there's a way that we're filling it in. But things do exist. You all exist, for the record. All of you online exist, even though you're just pixels on a computer screen. And So normally you wouldn't get that, but a Western mind can kind of get that pretty quick. So this is something that's brought that normally when I was a monk and we traveled with teachers, when they got to this phase, they talked very little about it. So we want to always make sure that when we talk about emptiness and the nature of things, in that way, we're never saying that things don't exist. We're just saying they don't exist as they appear. So the mind can know, but it's knowing, or it's seen in a way that's not the way it is. And it'll unpack more as we go. Everybody realizes you exist, right? Good.
Good karma save, John.
Okay. I just want to put that. Normally I do a better disclaimer when I start these things, but we might have a question here. Footnote number 5. Okay. Medford's given me a tip, but I have no idea how to find footnote number 5 on the Kindle. So,
John, I'll read it for you if you want.
yeah, why not? We're slowing it down.
It says the term clear light has different meanings depending on the context. It may also refer to the emptiness of inherent existence or to the subtlest mind. Back to you.
I thought you were going to help. Yeah, so the clear light nature of the mind. So as he's pointing out, yeah, depending on the context. And I'm going to refer to it as the subtlest nature of the mind, but and that's the context here. And so and we'll unpack. We've been talking about mind, so I know there's some newer people here, but they've been torturing me with this text for the last few weeks on understanding mind a little bit more. But we're going to use it in the context of the very subtlest consciousness that one has, which is more subtle than the cognitive mind I'm using right now. And to get, I know I'm seeing a lot of new people even online, so I just some good context here. I have a mind, I can see my thoughts, okay, if I meditate. I can sit there and you might even know that you're thinking, right? And you know when you're not thinking, maybe. You're probably in unawareness. But if you go to meditate, you're on the breath and then your mind's going to go somewhere, right? So, but you notice that. Something's noticing that. Okay, so now I have some awareness of thoughts instead of I'm thinking the thoughts. And then at some point you realize you're not actually thinking the thoughts, are you? Because you're the one watching the thoughts or observing them, actually. That'd be a better way of putting it. If I'm observing, well, that thought's going on or I'm ruminating, I didn't decide to ruminate. I didn't decide to do that. It's like I didn't decide to think about popcorn just now. But it's kind of habitual when I give this talk, popcorn pops up a lot just because anyway. So I didn't consciously do that, right? So the mind that we're used to produces images, thoughts, all these things constantly. That's what it does. You go to meditate, you're going to notice this stuff. I'm trying to focus on the breath. I am trying to focus on the breath. Mind is doing a bunch of other things. So we might start noticing, well, there's kind of a different aspects. There's something that can be aware of my mind. And then we can talk about awareness. So we
not to be a contrarian though, John.
That's what you do best.
No, I hate to be a contrarian. But to Medford's point about the subtle mind as well as the because in the text, it's saying the clear light nature of the mind refers to the basic capacity of the mind to cognize objects.
Uh-huh.
So in the sense that they're using it here, are they using it in the sense of like, what would we call that? Just our shared consciousness or our shared understanding of what reality is. We do have the capacity, don't we, to cognize objects?
We do, but when we're talking about cognizing, what does cognize mean?
To recognize the objects, to define them, to...
No, it doesn't mean to define them. No, that's where we're getting...
Okay.
Yeah. To know.
To know them, okay.
To know.
To perceive them, to see that they're there?
To know them, yeah.
Okay.
And then, we have all these other capacities to then define, label, project, and do a bunch of other things with it. But it can also just know.
So it's a matter of awareness then? Is that what it is? A matter of,
Well, I'm trying to get there. So, so I'm trying to, kind of work my way to that, which is that we have different levels of consciousness. I have the consciousness and the mind that it's conceptual, that is a part of these 5 skandhas, the body, John. I use it, I think with it, I label, I project, I understand. Very useful. It's a good mind to have. Yeah, it helps me find the gas station. So, and then there's, we had that talk about 8 consciousnesses. But I want to keep this really simple and not get in, to at least speak in a way that is accurate to my level of what I've been taught, and stay in that ground and don't get beyond my pay grade. So we have the mind that we're observing, its thoughts, images. We also have an awareness of that. So my awareness, by the way, is something that's always there. Right? I can be aware right now of my feet if I wanted to be. I can be aware of what my living room looks like. I can be aware. So we're aware all the time. Right? You're aware when you're asleep. Your awareness is still there. I'm not aware of my awareness. That's a different thing. But awareness is always present. So awareness is something that we're rarely aware of. But it's always there, and it's never tired, and it's always there. And I'm sleeping, I'm waking. Awareness. As soon as you become conscious of something, awareness is already there. Awareness is always there. So then we start to recognize, well, I have an awareness, and I have this cognitive mind, and I can be aware of my thoughts. I can be aware if I choose to. Right now, I could actually be aware a little bit of the space behind me. I can be aware right now of whether or not I'm aware. But that's very fleeting, and then mind gets in, and it's wondering about the space. It's wondering about that, and so I'm bringing awareness in as a different opportunity to recognize there's a more subtle consciousness that's available. We have what's called the store consciousness, which we've talked about a couple of times. And the store consciousness is that core consciousness of which every sort of memory, image, karmic imprint, everything is in. That's kind of your individual stream of consciousness. And so within that stream of consciousness, from a Buddhist perspective, that stream of consciousness, store consciousness, has come life to life to life to life. And the idea here is that everything I think, say, or do, karma is created. Karmic imprints, they're in the store consciousness. And the conditioning therein, afflictions, angers, frustrations, of these conditioning of my life, all give rise to how I'm experiencing the world right now. So on just a practical level, in our one single human lifetime, let's say we don't go multiple lifetimes, we all know that you have stored some memories and conditioning, some traumas, some joys, some things that we appreciate, some things that are good memories. The smell of something may trigger a certain experience. That's it, stored within us, right? And it's going to color how I experience people, based on my conditioning. And so we're unaware of most of that, but it's shaping how I'm experiencing you. But the clear light mind is more subtle than that even. And so that's what they're saying, that we have this mind that's more subtle than that. And it doesn't have the its nature doesn't have the conditioning. Right? And so that's what he's saying. That there's an awareness as we get more and more subtle that is unconditioned, that is not defiled. It's empty of all these defilements. It's there. So often it'll be described as the sky, and our obscurations, our conditioning, all that stuff are the clouds, right? But the clouds are not the sky, and we're caught up in the clouds. And I'm frustrated, this is that, and all that, but the clouds, when gone, there's sky. There's a sky. And so that clear light mind would be like the sky. And my idea of seeing myself as a human being would be the conditioning, the clouds. But the clouds are not the sky. Likewise, another analogy is you could put dirt in a glass of water, right? And it'll be dirty water. But the dirt's not the water. And what their point is going to be is that you could purify the water and you could have clear water. So let's just leave it at that, because that's the point being made here. So that I don't get in trouble trying to ultimately define the different meanings that these Larampa Geshes are throwing out. I'm not a Larampa Geshe, I was a lowly monk. So but I think we get that, right? So, and so that's why they're saying we can be free. They're saying that this is not our nature. It's not the ultimate nature of who we are. I bet you I could have just said that in the first page, but they're going to torture us, torture me, trying to explain this a little more. It's a great text, though. So the mind's failure to know objects must be due to the obstructing factors. So that's the point back to that, Mark, is it can know things accurately. It can know them directly. So that, to phrase that in a way that might make a little more sense. And I didn't share that screen with you online. I'm sorry. Let me remember to do that. So when people talk about enlightenment or the very nature of the mind itself, they're talking about something that is beyond concept, right? It's beyond concept. Awakening is beyond concept. And so people say, well, you can't explain it because you need concepts to explain it. Sky, class, right? Can't really, we can kind of point there. It can't be explained, but it can be known. That's it. It can be known. You yourself can know it. You yourself can directly know it. And that's what they're talking about. This mind can know this, but it's obstructed. I can't see it. I can't know that nature of it. I don't know all that about myself because I've got this conditioning, these karma and klesha, that is obscuring my view. That's what they mean by knowing. It can be directly known. That's how the Buddha became the Buddha, by directly knowing. Somebody asked him, like he's walking and said, what are you? Are you a god? Are you a, they went through things. You're a god, you're a human, are you this, are you that? And went through a list of things. I forget the list. But the Buddha said, I'm awake. And none of those, it's none of those things. I'm awake. I know who I am. And that's the thing. I know, directly know. Okay, so the mind's failure to know objects, right, to know them accurately, must then be due to obstructing factors. In some cases, obstructing factors may be physical. For example, if you put your hand over your eyes, you can't see. Okay, that one's a pretty obvious one. But in a deeper sense, our seeing is hindered by two types of obscurations: afflictive obscurations that prevent liberation from cyclic existence. Technical terms. Not a big deal, actually. This is the normal obscurations of karma and klesha. This is If somebody wants to be free of that can be free of the cyclic existence, you can cut through these misperceptions and obscurations and become an arhat, what we call an arhat. Have nirvana, attain nirvana. Good way of putting it. You can know that. And then a second one is the cognitive obscurations that prevent omniscience. And what they're talking about, there's very subtle obscurations that prevent full knowing, which would be the difference between a Buddha and an arhat. People, what's the difference between a Buddha and arhat? Arhat has these very subtle obscurations that have not quite been removed yet, and difference between that. Okay, so each Buddhist tenet system has a different way of identifying what constitutes these two obscurations, right? So Theravadins are going to have a view, they're mostly going to be arhats. And then in the Mahayana views, whether you're Zen or you're Tibetan or Chinese, they all have their sort of view. Even within the Tibetan ones, we have these different sort of subtle views. But they fit in these categories. And he's saying the description here is based on the writings of Nagarjuna, the great 2nd century Indian sage. In the 70 stanzas on emptiness, he notes that the conception that things that arise from causes and conditions exist in their own right is ignorance. That's what we just spent the last 3 weeks on. So, in other words, a tree can exist independently on its own, right? A tree needed to be a seed, needed soil, needed water, needed nutrients, needed sun, became a tree, right? No tree exists independently. Nor does anything exist independently. A chair doesn't exist. It looks independent. That's a chair made up of, the plastics, the metal, the things that came from the earth, the factors that need to produce it, all those things. And when we look more deeply, it's chair is an idea in my mind that I label that, and I use it. And I may use it as, I was actually using it as kind of a stand earlier, but it can have multiple functions. So what they're saying is, if I think that chair is independent from its own, that's ignorant. That's not how it exists, right? Nothing exists like that. Trees don't exist like that. Mountain looks pretty darn solid. That mountain's changing all the time. And that mountain only exists and depends upon the cause and conditions and what makes the difference between a mountain or a hill. Then we get into, all these things that are just concepts in our mind. And so he's saying to think that the mountain exists independently, that would be ignorance. Understanding that the mountain exists is a label that I put on something that arises from multiple causes and conditions, that would be more accurate. Okay. Yes.
Is there anything that exists in its own right?
Now, if it's conditioned, everything comes causes and conditions. Yeah. Nothing in this whole conditioned experience. If you find something, let me know. Yeah. So he's saying that's our misperception. That's pretty common. We kind of think like, it's my car, so and so's like that. And we even think about that like people, Caught someone tell me once, this is my body. Yeah, where'd you get it from? My parents, their things, and their grandparents, their things. Even my body, I didn't create my body, it's mine. It's, and my body's been supported by air and food and countless others, people that grew and harvested weeds. Mine, it's kind of interesting to think what's mine. Granted, I don't want to mess with my body. And I'm going to take care of that and have my rights around that. But the deeper knowing of even that, right, came from sperm and egg, parents, grandparents, and all that. And even this, is arose and depends upon all these things. And it's just The word mind gets pretty funny in my head. So we don't see things accurately, and we have these obscurations, misperceptions. And he's quoting Nargajuna, who states that this misperception, it's called ignorance. I like the word misperception. Ignorance is not knowing, though. It just doesn't sound pleasant, does it? I'm so ignorant. I'm much happier saying I have so much misperception, so much misunderstanding. But ignorance is the technical term. The clear light nature of the mind has the ability to cognize all objects, but ignorance and its latencies obstruct this. Anybody can ask about that word? Latent factors are like has potential for things like tension would be a potential for anger. We have all these latencies, so all these different things can arise. It's again not inherent, but creating the potential for that. That's there. The misperception and all the things that come with that can provide all these other potentials to arise. All faulty states of mind are based on and depend on ignorance, misperception. I'm going to keep saying that. And the 12 links of dependent arising. So that's its own teaching, which we're not going to break down right now. So 12 links is the process through which cyclic existence arises lifetime after lifetime, follow from ignorance. So the wheel of life is painted pretty much on every Tibetan Buddhist prayer hall. When you go in, I mean, it's right there. It's the wheel of life. And in it is the 12 links of dependent arising. The whole story of it all is just right there in the wheel of life. So, they've done a lot of work. They explain this. But it all arises from that misperception. So enlightenment, freedom, understanding, everything about it is just seen clearly. It's just accurate. So everything to do in Buddhism has to do with cutting through misperception. That's why debate, analyzing, challenging things is important. And it's encouraged. So in the Tibetan monastery, they debate 6 to 8 hours a day. You don't sit there and go, well, it was in the book. It's, that doesn't work. It does not work. And this book says that, and that book says that. Well, we debate. They do this hand slapping, they just debate. And the whole point of Buddhism is to understand the truth. So nothing is sacred. You attack everything, and try to find out what is underneath all this. So the quote here from Aryadeva, Nargajuna's chief disciple, states, "The consciousness that is the seed of existence has objects as its sphere of activity. When selflessness is seen in objects, the seed of existence is destroyed." Selflessness. So it's kind of recognizing emptiness. So when I actually see that it doesn't hold all these things I'm imbuing with it, selflessness, even John, how I see John, is destroyed. Yeah, existence is destroyed. So in other words, we're liberated. That's clear as mud, right? We got this. So let me do this one more paragraph. What is the consciousness that is the seed of cyclic existence? If consciousness in general were the root of cyclic existence, there would be no way to overcome cyclic existence, because consciousness has a clear and cognizant nature, and nothing can counteract its nature or sever its continuity. So if this was the way things are, we'd be stuck. Here, Aryadeva is referring not to the consciousness in general, but to a specific type of consciousness. Again, different from this very subtle, clear-lighted mind. Ignorance, the consciousness arising from ignorance, which is the consciousness which arises with the 5 skandhas Well, it's actually one of the five. But yeah, in correlation with mind and body. His point is that cyclic existence does not arise without a cause. It doesn't arise without a cause, and it doesn't arise from a discordant cause. Discordant cause means something that's not related. You plant an apple seed, you're not going to get an orange tree, right? That's what it means. So it needs a cause, but also needs a cause directly related to it, the result. Got to plant apple seeds if you want apple trees. So it's not willy-nilly. Or from a permanent creator. So those are the three things. Everything in cyclic existence arises, there's a cause, and it's not a discordant cause, and it's not from a permanent creator. Cyclic existence arises from an undisciplined, ignorant mind. Maybe we should have just started with that last sentence. So in this section on the text, we've been working through nature of mind, body, sense of self, and how we get caught up in a misperception of our experience, attributing qualities to people and stuff. There's just to bring it down to our daily lives. We talked about we had a good session the other day. Is I can have a resentment towards someone, right? Maybe have a resentment towards someone ever. I mean, not you guys, but it's hypothetically, it could happen. Some people might have a resentment towards someone. But if you look deeply at that, the person that you're having a resentment towards actually doesn't exist anywhere but your mind, right? That person who did that one thing that I have a resentment towards maybe 5 years ago, did they freeze in time? Is that who they are? Or am I carrying an image of a person and an event, projecting all these negative qualities on them because they could have never done anything nice ever in their life whatsoever? And then I carry it for 5 years. And every time I think of this person, this pops up. And I think that's who's the person I have. But I'm really just having a resentment at a caricature of an event in my mind and projecting on another human being as though they've never changed or never done anything else. And we don't even question that. Jimmy's a jerk, man. Let me tell you why. And I have no idea how much volunteer work he's done, who he's helped, and all that, and, anything. But I won't even question, he's a jerk. That's how misperceiving we can be about anything or anyone. Even go to a restaurant, I find that fascinating. Man, I went to that restaurant, it was terrible. Like if I go there on Tuesday, it'll still be terrible. What was terrible? Was it the person? Was it the waiter? Was it the cook? Or maybe it was a different cook. Maybe it was a different thing. And, were you in a good mood or not a bad mood? And, and was it, what was terrible about the restaurant? And then yet never recommend that thing. I went there once. So this is the way that all day long we are not only misperceiving, we're telling others how to misperceive. And then we're all agreeing with it. We're all huddling around going, yeah, that Jimmy's a freaking jerk, man. He did that to you 6 years ago? Oh, man. And then what happens? Then other people get resentments and we label and we project, and then just build. So that's these latencies that then projects, and then we elaborate, and then we spread it, and then we share it, and then we talk about it. And then pretty soon you actually think you absolutely need that kombucha to survive. Nobody in the world survived without kombucha before. Commercials. I love commercials because they're so insane about what we need to be happy with. So the point being here is that the cause of all this conditioning is our fundamental core root seed is a misunderstanding of ourselves and our experience. And we didn't get through the whole section here. But what they're going to say is that's not our nature. That is, that's the clouds in the sky. That's the dirt that got in the water. Your nature is pure. Matter of fact, ultimately, we'd say you have Buddha nature. And that the only thing preventing me from knowing all this is my obscurations. And the whole process of Buddhism is to remove those and know who you are. And quantum physics and a lot of others are starting to get there a little bit and understand this and going after that. So Buddhists don't have the total thing, there's other methods that people have used to do this. This is just a tried and true method that's lasted 2,600 years. So with actual living examples that we can point to. But again,
John,
yeah.
So Ayurveda is saying basically that through the cultivation of bodhicitta and realizing one's own selflessness, that you can pierce ignorance and no longer have to be caught up in that samsara world, that cyclic existence.
So he didn't put bodhicitta in there yet, but you know that
selflessness.
From our view. Yeah, selfless. And again, ultimate bodhicitta would be that. So yeah, I just didn't want to throw everybody else off with a new word. So ignorance is the problem. The solution is wisdom. So that's why everything in Buddhism is focused on, what's true. Who are you? And keep unpeeling the onion, right? But to know who you are. And on that note, I'm gonna go out there for a minute. We'll wrap up on this. There's a lot of times you hear in Buddhism, non-self. Anybody ever non-self? And as though you don't exist. That's a bit problematic. And what's more accurate to say is not self. In other words, I identify me and mine with that which is not me and mine, not self. I identify John with things that are not who I really am, and qualities about myself that are not who I am, not self. So the way to start to recognize at some point truth is we start to identify what you're not. Am I my arms, my foot, my legs? Is that me? Is that who I am? Ways that we define ourselves. Right? Anybody here consider yourself an impatient person? Yeah, okay. Some nodding heads for the record. I don't know out there. But, and so we might say, I'm an impatient person. And then I'd say, have you ever been patient? Yeah, I've been patient. So are you patient or are you impatient? Right? See how we just label? Okay. I'm a responsible person. Have you ever been irresponsible? Yeah, a couple times. Right? So these fixed qualities already, I'm already kind of putting myself in a box. And so there's a lot of things that we identify with as self that are not. So you start unwrapping that, not self, what's not me, and then you might, again from a Dzogchen view, recognize yourself as actually, something to be known, but can't be explained. Buddha nature. That's the purity, and that's already there. We don't need to develop it. No need to cultivate it. It is our nature, from a Dzogchen view. From the view that'll probably be presented here would be we have Buddha potential. So Dzogchen, you already have it. You're a Buddha, you just don't know it because we're obscured. Buddha potential, the potential needs to be nurtured and cultivated, but it's present, and again, it's obscured. So the whole point of all Buddhism is to remove the obscurations, to know who you are, and then different schools of Buddhism have different methods and practices to help you do that. And fundamentally, it all starts with being a more ethical human being. That the biggest obscurations and everything come from negative karmic imprints that are, really get tangled in them with resentments and angers, these very harsh misperceptions that separate and create a lot more of unhappiness. And I will put up our dedication. And at the beginning, we cultivated a good motivation to be here. At the end, we dedicate all this energy, all this merit and wisdom that we've cultivated together for the benefit of all beings and for our continued spiritual growth. So taking a moment to set that intention, then I'll invite those who would like to join me in the dedication prayer. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha.